the questions. Once we're done answering the questions, for those of you that are live, Sadi is going to share a really nice coupon code in the chat. So stick around. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I will be reading off some questions that were submitted by folks that couldn't make it live. Before we do that, I'd love to introduce myself. My name is Maca. I am the founder and CEO of Avocademy. I was a UX designer myself before I started this company. And now it's been over 2.5 years that we've been helping people change careers into UX design. Today, I am here to just answer any questions that you all have. And maybe some background about our programs. We have 3 different programs. The first is our UX UI Foundations program. This is meant for people that have no experience or are really looking to get a more structured learning experience. It's a program that has about 16 weeks of unlimited mentorship. You can finish anywhere from 4 to 16 weeks. And like I said, that's our UX UI Foundations program. Right now, it's $1,997, can be financed for as little as $70, I believe. Our second program is our Career Jumpstart program. So for those that finish the Foundations program, we then have a program in Career Jumpstart. We help you get real world experience by doing real client projects through an agency. And then we help you find a job. And then our third program is a Design Masterclass program. So that's a subscription-based program where we launch new small specialization courses. So for folks that have already found jobs or people that want to learn a little bit more about specific things, you can check those out. That's a little bit of like a newer product they're offering. I'll get started with some questions, but for those of you that are live, feel free to just drop in questions as we go through. So the first question that I have here is, what is the longest? Let's see. What is the longest that it took someone to find a job? So like I said, in our Career Jumpstart program, that's where we help folks find jobs. And the job search period is 6 months. And we've had people hit a little bit over 6 months. One person hit the 6-month mark. On average, we're seeing a 2.5 month job search period in the Career Jumpstart program. And for the most part, people that take a little bit longer are not really hitting the requirements that we set out of how many jobs to apply. But it could take anywhere from 2 to 6 months to find a job. The next question that I have here is, has there been graduates that did not find a job? We've had a couple of folks that just decide they no longer want to look for a job, or they don't want to put in the work for looking for a job, or they get frustrated. It's not an easy process, right? Like looking for a new job is hard, and we want to make sure that folks know that it's not automatic, like you do this course and you get a job. Where, if you're willing to put in the hard work, we can help you find a job. But a lot of folks, kind of give up around the 2 to 3 month mark. I think the next question here, and if anybody has follow-ups to my questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, please. I would love for this to be a little bit more of a conversation, if possible. So the next question is, how long have you been working in this field, and where did you transition from? I have been working as the founder and CEO of Avocademy for 2.5 years. Before that, I was a UX designer, but I actually went to school for mechanical engineering. So I am a self-taught UX designer. I used Craigslist to find projects and build a portfolio. And then I had a couple of jobs before my last job, where I was at PwC. And then I left there to start this company. I think another question here is, how did you learn this profession? And I think I just answered that, right? I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I read a lot of content. It took me a lot longer than the time we give you all to do this, because I didn't really have curriculum or structure. I didn't know what was right, what wasn't right. So I just learned by doing, by going on Craigslist, finding projects, finding clients and such. There's a question here in the chat. For it to be more of a conversation, should we have cameras on and unmute to ask question, or is this way preferred? You are more than welcome to have your cameras on and unmute and ask questions. If you'd like to just do the little raise hand emoji, we can then spotlight you and bring you on to ask a question. We don't like to force anybody to turn on their cameras, but if that is something you're comfortable with, I would love that. If not, drop it in the chat. We'll read it out loud and answer it, hopefully. So there's a question here that says, I see a lot of positions that have 200 or more applicants for each one. The field looks oversaturated. What do you think of these applicant numbers and competition that bootcamp students are facing? What makes one stand out from that kind of competition? I've answered this question a lot of different ways before. If you're just graduating college and you're applying to a job, you're going to end up applying to hundreds of jobs, right? Just like you would if you're changing careers. The market right now is competitive. But I don't think the field is oversaturated, right? Our students are finding jobs at the same pace or rate. There's a lot of, I always try and not say this, but there's a lot of really bad quality designers out there, right? So like out of the 200 applicants, 100 of them might have done the Google UX course and have a portfolio that has never been reviewed by a real mentor, and has a bunch of red flags, right? So it's pretty easy to stand out from the amount of design, like air quotes, designers out there, right? So we like to say that our designers are going to land in the top 30% of all those applicants, just from the fact of having some mentorship and some guidance, right? There's a lot of people that are just not there, right? Have a lot of red flags, haven't really learned the fundamentals, and are kind of trying to get these jobs. There's a question here from Cece. I'm currently a caregiver and will need to go at a much slower pace than the rest of the cohort. Is there a required date to finish the program? Will I still have the same support and access from the staff and also others in the program? So due to the fact that we've constantly been trying to accommodate for a lot of different folks in a lot of different situations, the course is meant to be an 8-week course, but we've actually just extended it to 16 weeks of unlimited mentorship. So if you were to join, you could be on the 16-week track per se. And for those 16 weeks, you will get unlimited mentorship, support through Slack, and Zoom calls, like one-on-one Zoom calls with mentors. So you could go that slower pace and still get the help. There is an end date at that 16-week mark, and you would have to talk to our staff to see if you could get an extension past that. If you do not finish by those 16 weeks, you will still then have access to the course, but you will not receive a certification and have access to Slack and those other things. We're really flexible. So if you reach out to our student success team and we see that you're currently making progress, then we're happy to kind of work with you. But we do have that 16-week kind of maximum time length of the program. So for Career Jumpstart, the second part of the program, the first 2 weeks is kind of like a self-learning period. So for those 2 weeks, you're going to be doing an individual project and you're going to be watching the course content to make sure you're up to speed. There's some like follow-alongs and some stuff like that. When you get to phase 2 of Career Jumpstart, you're working on group projects. So those projects take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks each. That's like having a real design job. So you can't extend that, right? Like you are working with other designers to do real work for a real client. So it's like having a job, you're looking at about 10-ish to 15 hours a week. And once you're done with that, the job search part, you're now individual again, and you can kind of work, you know, at your own pace if you'd like. But Career Jumpstart, it's a little bit more strict, not from our end, but from the fact that you're doing work for a client. There's deadlines, there's a team dynamic. I hope that answers the question there. There's another question here. Would you recommend to do some research as to what UX design is? The constant question, what if this is not for me? Yeah, I think, and I'll now be honest, right? Like when I started learning about UX design, my train of thought was like, I studied engineering and I got this like maintenance engineering job, which meant I wrote instruction manuals for how to fix airplanes. And I was like, I hate maintenance engineering. I was like, this is not for me, right? And then I got my next job and it was design engineering. So it was designing parts for airplanes. And I was like, crap, this is still not for me. Like, I hate this. So when I got to engineering, I thought, when I got to UX, I thought, I'm just trying another thing to figure out if it's for me or not. And for me, it was more of like this kind of like discard method of like, try it, it's not for me, next. So I never felt like this is for me, right? Like this is the career for me, I'm gonna love it. It wasn't until I started doing that I really realized that the creative and logical side of things were clicking for me, and it was bringing me a lot of joy and fulfillment to do this type of work. So I think you can watch, you know, a recommendation would be to watch like day in the life YouTube videos that are a little bit longer, day in the life TikTok videos of UX designers to kind of see what they do. But until you don't start doing, it's going to be really hard to figure out if it's for you or not. A big part of why the program was created in 2 parts, which is Foundations and then Career Jumpstart, is because I kept seeing people doing these longer programs, you know, like Career Foundry or General Assembly and Springboard, and you had to commit to $15,000 or $24,000 up front. And I kept seeing people kind of halfway through be like, not for me. And now you've committed to $20,000 some dollars to realize it's not for you. So I wanted to create something that was, you know, it's still money, right? It's $2,000, but at least it's less of a commitment than the 15,000s. And by the time you're done, you may realize, I love this, I'm ready to commit, let's do Career Jumpstart. Or, hey, this wasn't for me, but actually maybe copywriting is, or maybe like research is, right? Or something completely different. So I would definitely say like, look at some YouTube videos, look at some TikTok videos. But I think trying it, you know, might be the best bet. If you don't want to try it with us, which I think we're the best way to try it. But if you don't want to try it with us, I would try something that's cheap, like do like the free trial of the Google UX course to kind of understand what those things are, or watch some like free YouTube videos. But it's not until you try and you start doing that you can like have that light bulb moment of like, oh, I actually do enjoy doing this. Thank you all for providing questions, so I don't feel like I'm just reciting to you all. So the next question is, in the Career Jumpstart portion, does everyone create the same or similar portfolios? I saw something online saying that this is what makes it difficult for people to take boot camps to stand out in the job market. So I love this question because it is a problem, right? So if you go to, I don't know, Thinkful, right? You're going to do 3 fake projects, and it's going to be like a bus app, a Dropbox redesign, or like a Google Drive redesign, and some other project that they've like predefined for you. And then maybe you'll do something real or unique for yourself. We are not that way, right? So that does leave with every graduate of Thinkful, and I'm just saying a random bootcamp name. I don't know if that's how they do it, but I know that traditionally there's like preset projects that you're doing. Everybody has the same one in their portfolios. For CJ, it's not like that. You're actually like working at an agency for clients. So there's a maximum of 3 to 4 other students that have that project in their portfolios because it's an actual client project that you're doing, right? So think of working at, you know, at a company, right? Like when I was at PwC, the other people on my team would also have that project in their portfolio because we all worked on it together. So the outcome of CJ is your portfolio, which all portfolios look similar, right? It's a website where you're showing your work, but with different content because you're going to be working on different projects all together. So we actually took that into consideration and did a ton of research as to like how to make you all stand out through our program. Do your mentors have a limited amount of students they can get back to? I hear that some people are anxious on waiting for responses on their project reviews. I think this might be related to UX UI foundations. We have over 100 mentors, and the turnaround time for reviews on the activities for foundations are typically 1 to 2 days. So when you submit an activity, you can keep reading, keep going through course material, and you'll get a response from a mentor. This is if you're submitting on Slack. You could also schedule a call with a mentor. So we usually have calls available like 1 or 2 days in advance. So if you know, hey, today I'm going to work on my wireframes, I want to get feedback really fast, you can say tomorrow I'll schedule a call with a mentor, and you get one-on-one mentorship and feedback from that mentor. So there's a little bit of coordination that needs to go on your end of like, hey, I'm going to sit down and work on this today or this week on this date and this day. I'm going to schedule a check-in with a mentor on these dates during this time that works for you. So we do have a bit of a waiting time on turnaround for activities, which is 1 to 2 days, but you could always schedule a mentor call to get the stuff approved faster, as long as you're planning ahead, which some people just don't plan ahead, right? I'm the person that gets to 0 in their car of gas. So I think the people that are more like me kind of struggle to get those calls, but we always have mentors available for calls. Yeah. There's a question that was submitted here around salary. I currently make $92K and I want to do UX design, but would like an increase even though I have no experience. I live in New York City and I can't relocate for higher paying state. Is it possible to make over $92K to start as entry-level UX design in New York City? I also have a bachelor's degree. So I'll start by saying our salaries entire range has been $56,000 to $187,000 in terms of salary ranges from Career Jumpstart graduates. Our advertised average is around $85K, which is already $20K from the US average, which is $65K for entry level. These days, salaries have increased. So our true average is closer to $95K. We still say $85K because we want to be careful. We don't want to overpromise, right? We don't want to like trick you guys into anything. So our average is closer to $95K. And in New York City, you can get a really high salary, especially if you're willing to go in person. A lot of folks want remote jobs. It's really going to be up to you to put in that extra work to differentiate yourself. So we have somebody kind of similar position. He was making 100. He knew he wasn't going to take any job over 120. So he came in, he did foundations, he did 2 CJ projects, then he worked on 2 more CJ projects. Ultimately, he had like 6 projects in his portfolio, and I think he got a job making like 140 something. So if you're willing to put in the extra work, add more projects, really work on your soft skills, how you interview, how you sell yourself, it's definitely doable. We can't guarantee it, obviously, right? It depends on the work that you're willing to put in, how your soft skills are, and stuff like that. So it's doable. Okay, CC, want to make sure it's going for me. Thank you. Yeah. So it's you definitely have to put in a little bit of extra work, right? Like 3 case studies and, you know, just the standard curriculum is not going to guarantee that. But if you work a little bit more, you do some individual projects that we provide and kind of put in the work, you can definitely get in there. Elena, am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions, and I was about 3 minutes late. I apologize, so I hope it's not a repeat. But one thing specifically that has been recommended to me is take a local program because they have, maybe a better handle on the local job market. I'm wondering how much that actually applies to UX and UI, because a lot of it's remote, or you're working for a company out of like a huge city that's not even close to you. Or do you think there's any actual value in that? Because I find that a lot of the local in-person programs are long, expensive, and kind of the opposite of what you were talking about, which is like, or well, they are kind of what you're talking about, where you might get in and you're like, this isn't for me, but I already paid 15 grand for this like 6 months thing. So curious on what your thoughts are on like the kind of local job market knowledge. And
Yeah. Did you hear that from one of those local programs?
well, someone who went through one of those programs.
Okay, yeah.
A little biased there, but they were like, I was really happy with my decision because A, B, and C. So
Yeah. So the connections to the job market are ultimately not what's going to make or break your success in the field. And what I mean by that is like mentorship, ability to create a great portfolio, ability to coach you on soft skills and mock interviews, portfolio walkthroughs, design challenges, ability to support you during design challenges, right? Like answer your questions as you go through. I think all of that is much more important than like, I am X school and we're located in Miami and we know people in Miami for jobs. You're going to have to apply to a lot of jobs anyway. And we still do referrals per city. So like one of our students just got a job that a past student left for a better job. And she reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm back helping backfill my role. Boom, got another student place in the, DC area. So like there's still connections through each program. And ultimately it's going to be a lot easier. Where are you located?
I'm in the Twin Cities.
Okay. Yeah. So when you start applying it, the strategy that we use when you start applying is we're going to get you applying in your area, right? Like we're going to get you filtering jobs in your area and then in your state and kind of close by, because you're going to be a better candidate for those jobs, right? Like they want to hire you before somebody from California or somebody from New York, right? So yeah, I don't honestly like the job market right now is so remote friendly that advice, sure, like it helps, but just having a good community of graduates, I think helps a lot more than like specific local help.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's okay to ask another
Yeah,
question.
of course.
And I might have been coming in at this time, so I hope it's not a repeat, but is there any type of resume job search support prior to Jumpstart? Like, is there anything at the tail end of the foundations that kind of gets you thinking in that direction, or is there really nothing until you commit to that second portion?
Yeah, so foundations, the last module helps you start building your portfolio. I actually just re-recorded the content for portfolio building yesterday for foundations. So we will help you kind of get that portfolio, get your foundations project in it, work on your about page. And I think we have some resume templates in there as well. Ultimately, you don't want to start applying for jobs until you've filled out your portfolio. So coming out of foundations, you'll have one project. So you do want to add at least 2 or 3 more projects. Something a lot of people do is they finish foundations and then they go out on their own and kind of like figure out how to kind of finish their portfolio. And we've had people successfully find jobs that way. We also have people that come back 3 months later and they're like, I wasted 3 months trying to do this myself. Can I join CJ? And we let you all join CJ as well. But at the end of foundations, you will have the knowledge to go on and do it yourself. If you're a person that's like, I can do this myself, I don't need to spend extra money, or I don't need that additional support.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And I don't think that necessarily would be the case, but just kind of like if you want to start brushing up things and be heading in that direction kind of simultaneously, and be thinking about that as you go through the program, which I think is what it's designed to do, it sounds like. But
Yeah.
just wanted to know
we've put a lot of thought into the structure of the program. So like foundations, we want you to really focus on like getting those skills and like feeling confident that you can like use the design software and like problem solve and ask the right questions and reference best practices, while And if you have extra time, we want you to spend it on that. Like we want you to do it faster if possible, right? Like we kind of want you to focus on learning for those first, you could do it as fast as 4 weeks. We've seen people do it in 4 weeks, which if you're doing it full time, I think you can. And then when you start CJ, you'll have access to all the content for the next, couple months. So you can get ahead and kind of watch that extra stuff, which would be amazing. We love students that do that. We're always after folks to like watch the course content. So that would be great.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I lost my train of thought. I might have to come back. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. Yeah, let me know if you remember. There's a question here from Jessica. On average, how many hours a day or week is it ideal to dedicate into the program? So when you start foundations, you'll be given a timeline that kind of gives you like the recommended pace for the program based on how many hours you can commit. So I believe if you're doing full-time, you should be able to finish in like 4 weeks if you're like really like truly full-time on it. If you're doing part-time, it should be about 8 weeks. If you're doing about 10-ish hours, it should be about 16 weeks. That's give or take. Everybody's at a different level. We had a past student that joined the program, did not know how to copy paste, right? Did not know how to use Google Drive. There was like a lot, of the technical skills to be able to use a course, use Slack and things like that weren't there. So obviously a person with that type of background, it's going to take a little bit more to kind of get used to all that. If you're a person that's technically savvy, you might be closer to those hours, and they definitely fluctuate, right? At the beginning of the course, it's a lot more reading and watching videos and just understanding the process, doing the research part of the design process. At the end, you're doing a lot more design, right? You're designing wireframes, doing UI. So it'll be kind of up and down as you're kind of working through the different modules. I would say minimum, you should have 10 hours a week. And I mean like true 10 hours where you can like sit down and put on noise canceling headphones or something and like be by yourself to focus. Ideally, you'd be spending closer to like 15, 20 to get it done in those, 8 to 16 weeks. There was a question. Yeah, of course. So there was a question here. What is UX UI design and its applications? Really broad. Probably should have started with this question. So when we're talking about UX UI design, we're talking about designing apps and websites at a really 10,000 feet level. So we're talking about understanding who's experiencing a problem and what the solution should look like digitally, right? Like what's an app for your phone or a website that can solve that problem. It's not coding, so it's not doing any development. It's everything that comes before that, right? Understanding who's going to use the website and what needs to be done. That's a very simplified definition, but hopefully that helps kind of understand what we're talking about. The next question is, will I be certified at the end of the program? So before I answer the question, I will say one more time that certifications don't mean anything in this world. So really what matters the most is a portfolio. So I've said this before, if there's 2 portfolios and 2 people, right, with 2 portfolios, and one person did like, I don't know, the Cornell UX design certificate, right? Like people are like, ooh, Cornell, right? And another person did, Avocademy's UX UI foundations. If Avocademy's UX UI foundations portfolio has 3 projects and it looks amazing and there's no red flags, and the Cornell portfolio has a bunch of red flags, only has 1 project, etc., this person's still going to get the job over this one, right? So the certification doesn't mean much. It's the outcome of the program and what your portfolio looks like and how confident you feel about what you've learned. To that end, we do have a certification. So at the end of UX UI Foundations, you will receive a certificate you can print out, as well as a badge that you can add to your LinkedIn. I know certifications matter a lot to folks, but I want to make sure that you all know that you can't just like do the program and get the certificate. Like the outcome, the work you put in really matters, and that's what's going to make a difference and differentiate you. There was a question asking about price. And so we talked about UX UI Foundations is about $2,000. We can finance it for as little as like $70. Career Jumpstart is $5,500. You don't pay until the end of the program. And if you don't get a job offer, you also don't pay. So really upfront, you need those $2,000 or to finance it, and then you won't have to pay until you get a job. And then the Design Masterclass is $97 a month. What are the salary ranges? Oh, I've covered some of these already. So salary ranges, it's about 56,000 starting all the way to 187K is the range. And really depends city, your previous experience, how good you are interviewing, which we help with, and things like that. Is there common advice online that is not actually recommended in the field? This is an amazing question. So I think, you know, when we teach UX design, we teach a very kind of like step-by-step process, right? And if we think back to like the scientific process, right, like you kind of had the step-by-step and things like that. Design is not linear, right? Like even though we teach you all of those steps, ultimately when you get to the real world, and we do this in Career Jumpstart, you have a time constraint, right? You have this many weeks to get this workout, and you have like a people and a money constraint. And you have what your stakeholders or your clients want, you have what your internal team wants. So there's a lot of things that come into play. So even though ideally you would do steps 1 through 10, sometimes you have to be like, forget steps 1 to 3, let's start at 4, we're gonna skip 5, we're gonna do 6, and we're gonna get to 10, right? So we teach a very idealistic process so that you understand all the tools for your tool set. But when the real world comes, you have to really adapt and be like, I can only do this, this, and this, and hope that gets me to a good place. If it doesn't, we'll test it, and then we'll kind of iterate on it. Okay. So I think that that is something that's not shared broadly, right? And we try to kind of embed that into our teaching, and we really follow that in Career Jumpstart. So for Career Jumpstart, the question here is, do you pay a % of your first year salary for Jumpstart, or is it just a flat rate? We used to do a %, and we've moved away from that. So all new folks, it's a flat rate. And so everybody pays the same. You can pay $5,000 when you start, or you can pay $5,500 when you finish. And either of those can be financed with 0% interest. So you can finance it through a firm for 0% interest, up to 3 years. So it's not like a big monthly payment. And we have other non-affirm options if you do want to finance. But yeah, we moved away from the first year salary. We wanted everybody to pay an equitable amount of money and not have to like pay additional. So the problem with ISAs is, let's say we help you get a job and you're making 100K a year, and our ISA was 7%, you would pay us $7,000. Let's say you get a side job, or you start driving for Uber, or you start doing something else. All of that money you're making, you also owe us 7% of it, which to me just didn't feel like right. So we kind of moved away from that, and we want to make sure you know exactly what you're going to pay when you get a job. We also have this entire enrollment agreement that says exactly what you need to do to get your money back if you don't find a job, like if you don't get a job offer. So as long as you're doing that and kind of following the steps, we will refund you your money or not make you pay if you don't find a job. So ideally, it's you know, if you succeed, we succeed as well. Awesome. I have one last question here. So if anybody has any questions live, I'm happy to answer them after this one. The question here is, what happens when you get creative block? What do you do to find inspiration? This is a great question. So design inspiration, I typically try to think about applications that I use that do similar things, and I look at those and see like how they do the things they do, or try to understand why they're doing those things. If I'm really stuck, I go for a walk around the office or I go for a walk around the block. I try to do something that is not focusing on the problem I need to solve, so that then when I come back, my brain's kind of, not so focused on it, and maybe I find a solution elsewhere. So when I used to work from home, I would like put a load of laundry in, or like go do the dishes or vacuum, and then I would come back to it, and see if I could get unstuck from there. In terms of design inspiration, there's inspiration everywhere, right? Like there's inspiration in nature, there's inspiration websites, there's inspiration in applications. So there's a lot of different things you can kind of reference, but for the most part, when you're referencing those things and you can't figure it out, if you just step away from it for a little bit and come back, you could usually resolve it. But awesome. So for those of you that are live here, Sadi just shared a coupon code. So feel free to write that down. And I think it's until this Friday. But yeah, any other questions? Thank you all for joining live. Anything else I can answer? What do I advise on the material for the visual learning students? Do you mean like our course material, or do you mean? Okay. Yeah, so in our program, we do have videos. So almost every module has videos. We link to outside videos, and then each activity has a video that walks you through how to do the activity. Additionally, you have unlimited mentor sessions that are on Zoom, and the mentor can walk you through visually how to do whatever it is that you're stuck or don't know about. So there's tons of different ways for you to get help. When you start the program, actually, we make you write which type of learning, how you learn best. We make you do a little thing, it's visual. And we actually put that in your profile so that we know when a mentor meets with you, if it should be auditory or visual or et cetera, right? So there is content on the course that's video, as well as you can get on a video call with anybody as many times as you'd like. Yeah. But awesome. Thank you all for joining. Hopefully we'll see you on the, let's see. Fresh out of the program, you're basically applying everywhere, but should you try to aim more for an established company or not mind a startup? It really depends on your preferences. So it depends on if you think you could be okay working as your own designer, like your solo designer on a team, or if you feel like you need a team, or maybe you just need mentorship. So then a solo design role, as long as there's a product person, could be helpful. We have our kind of graduates channel, Slack channel, where we have like a solo UX designer channel where folks that are working at startups can kind of support each other. And then every other week after you graduate Career Jumpstart and are in the workforce, we have a meeting that I lead where all the grads kind of get together and we talk about different topics. And actually, this was one of them, right? Like how to be a solo designer at a startup and kind of who to lean on, where to get mentorship and things like that. So it's really your own preferences, what you feel you'll be comfortable with. But yeah, you won't have more success in one or another. It depends on your own preferences. Yeah. But all right, y'all, we will be wrapping up. If you all have any questions, feel free to email info@avocademy.com. That will land in my inbox. And hopefully we'll see you all on the other side in Foundations or CJ. Yeah. Bye, y'all.